Richie, I got a lacrosse ball.
A what? Oh, you got a lacrosse ball. Oh,
I actually got two. They're blue, and you can make your own jokes later, but they were actually I actually just bought the cheapest ones on Amazon. But I've been using them. They're great. I love it. I love it on the feet. Really good.
Oh,
really
nice.
I found like this lump in the arch of my left foot that has been working out for like 2 days now. It's like grinding on it. It's awesome.
Still not working. Gosh darn it.
What?
The build. This build.
Oh. No, the build that's cursed. Blame Brent. He was the one who touched it first.
It was working before he touched it.
It was. Everything was fine, and then Brent came along. Along came Brenty.
Yeah, it's saying there's a file that's missing in a file I took out. I'm like,
huh. All
you're
right.
okay.
I'm fine.
You're
I was just catching up in chat on Tara's non-working audio again.
Non-working audio. I can't believe it. Just like.
All right.
We need
So
to get
Tara, if you're still there and you just want to listen and feed me answers in chat for stuff that I don't know, then that's totally cool too. Hopefully no one asks me for script questions again. That you could just Google.
Replication. All replication questions, please address string AGG.
Yep. No thanks. I'm good on that. Someone outside is playing Sunglasses at Night really loud. I guess they heard about Service Pack 1 too. Guess we got some other SQL Server fans in the neighborhood. It's pretty interesting.
I was going to serenade you with You Ought to Know, but I'll leave that to myself.
I was going to wear my fez
Oh!
to celebrate SP Wanted, because that's the
great.
closest thing that I have to a party hat. I have nothing else that resembles a party hat, which sucks because I do party all the time. I'm not putting a mug on my head. I could wear this cool stained glass bat, like a Flavor Flav necklace, but
Yeah, boy!
that was the limit of my Halloween decorations. Oh well.
Now that that's over.
Yeah. Now that Halloween's done, I can get ready to hang up a dripping blood turkey for Thanksgiving.
Ooh, nice.
No, I don't have one of those. Nor would I pay for one. All right, let's see here. It is just coming up on 12:15, so we should get started with the real questions, I guess. Do you want me to read again? And
you direct, because I'll ask you all a bunch of questions and you'll blame me for bad questions later.
No, that's not true. I always blame the users for bad questions later. I always say it's their fault, Richie. You just read them. It's okay. It's your teleprompter, man. All right. Anyway, stop making noises so we can officially start the broadcast. Welcome everyone to the 12:15, unless you're lazy and you live in some other time zone. The first question is, can we turn off auto updates on SQL 2016 yet, sir? I think someone has spiked your oatmeal. That is a wonky question. There's a replication question, so I'm gonna ask it. I'm gonna read it out loud, and if oh my goodness, we have a Tara.
Oh wow, finally worked.
We have a Tara voice.
Well, it's
webinar help stop trying everything.
It's almost you're very faint.
Yeah, it's like in Poltergeist when they're talking to someone through a mirror. We can hear you. Tara?
I'm here.
Did we lose her?
No, I'm here.
Come into the light. Here we go. All right. Well, Tara, if you can hear us, if you can hear us, hold on, Richie, hold hands. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. If you can hear us, does the snapshot folder for replication need to be on its own drive? Tara? Tara?
We're trying to turn up her mic. All I need is one mic.
All right. Well, we'll wait until Tara can come gets her mic working again before we go back to that replication question because I frankly just don't know. Let's see. Should mirroring be removed where the mirrored database server will be offline for several days? Yeah, because your transaction log isn't going to be able to truncate for those several days. So if you take log backups, it's not going to help. It's because mirroring is going to be like, hey, I need to be able to send these transactions else whistle before the transaction log can be cleared. So if it's going to be down for several days, yeah, I'd probably want to remove mirroring because otherwise, unless you can afford to have have your log file balloon out to gigantic sizes. Does this new version support online index reads? Yeah, no, it doesn't appear to. At least Aaron Bertrand's roundup said that it doesn't. I don't know if anyone else saw that it did somewhere else. I haven't tried it yet, and I have a puzzler of a time trying to use Standard Edition because all I have is Developer Edition, which is Enterprise anyway.
Come on, can't you burn 2 hours of your valuable time to figure this out? Come on, man.
I could, but then I wouldn't be able to release cool things in SP Blitzcast for people so that they can know when they're using table variables and heaps and functions that ruin their performance. Let's see. Right after VSS snapshot taken of all server volumes, vendor then backs up the databases on the SQL Server instance with a destination of something like file equals 1, type equals virtual device. This breaks the log chain. Contacting vendor rep, but why is this happening? I don't know. Ask the vendor. That's dumb if they do that and break the log chain. Couldn't tell you. If I could ever see inside the mind of most vendors who work with SQL Server, I would probably just go mad. Recommended max stop on a 4-core SQL Server to start. They have CPU count equals 4 and hyperthread ratio of 1. If it's maxed, if you have a 4-core server, a single socket 4-core server, I would not change max stop. I would not set it to anything. It's not really going to do you much good. I would still want to change cost threshold for parallelism though. And you might want to be a little extra aggressive with that and make sure that if something goes parallel, it's because it really needed it. 50 you might even find 50 is a bit low in that, because parallel queries, they use extra threads, they use extra resources. If you have a single socket 4-core server, I'm willing to bet you also don't have much RAM either. So you could be in for a load of performance hurt if too much stuff starts going parallel. You could start seeing thread pool, you could start weights, you could start seeing all sorts of resource semaphore weights. So I would mind my beeswax when it comes to parallelism there. I wouldn't totally disable it. I wouldn't set max stop to 1. I would leave it at 0 and just set cost threshold high enough so that things aren't just wantonly going parallel. Let's see. Blame Paul Randall since he kills cats for every shrunk database, apparently.
It's true. He does.
That is true.
That is
slowly and savagely. It's like it's nasty, really.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't know how he lives with himself.
Just don't shrink the database, and we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all the weird scenes out of The Cell, where there's just like intestines and weird accordion.
I'm unfamiliar with that, and I will continue to be so.
You never saw The Cell?
No.
It has J-Lo and Vince Vaughn in it. How have you not seen The Cell? She plays a psychiatrist who goes inside a serial killer's mind to help find some girl who he's holding hostage. Whatever.
That's probably why.
Yeah, all right. Sorry you have no taste in movies.
Did you just drop a 90s film reference? Like a really obscure 90s film reference?
It's not even obscure. There's a sequel to it. It's not obscure. It's totally it's got Vincent D'Onofrio in it. It's totally
they made a sequel to Anaconda. Whatever.
I don't know. It's true. Did they make a sequel to that shark movie with Samuel L. Jackson?
Deep Blue Sea.
Cool J? Yeah. Was there a sequel to that?
I would assume that Sci-Fi probably did something like that.
Yeah, probably. That's what turned into Sharknado, probably. All right. Let's see here.
What a great scene. That was awesome.
Someone is using Windows 21012 R2, SQL Server 2012, also R2. There is no such thing as SQL Server 2012 R2. There is only 2012. How much RAM for OS? How much for SQL? 32 gigs on the server. I would probably give 8 gigs back to Windows so that it can do things. That's it. Let's see.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Finally.
You're still a little faint, but we can hear you.
All right. I'm as high as it can go. Doesn't happen on WebEx.
Oh. Well.
Hear that, everyone? She's as high as she can go.
Rocket Man. So Tara, there was a replication question.
Yay.
Yeah, I know. It's a good one, maybe. Does the snapshot folder for replication need to be on its own drive?
It does not, but you may run into a problem with disk space. If it's, we had all of our stuff separated into mount points, and the default location for the snapshot folder, it ends up being put with the system databases, maybe not Temp TB, but the other stuff, also where the error log is. And in my environments, that mount point was always created small, since everything there is usually small, and so it caused replication to fail at one point when we were doing a snapshot. We just didn't have enough disk space for it, and so we ended up moving it to its own mount point so that it could not impact the system stuff also. So not required, but it might be recommended, depending upon the size of your snapshots.
Oh, all right then. Well, hope that answers your question, replication person. Your life is hard enough with replication in it. Let's see, what is next? I have someone hogging the cache and killing page life. I am aware of a couple DMVs that can point out possible offenders, but could it be possible that the offending query doesn't show up in these DMVs? Geez, that's a weird one. So if you could clarify a little bit, when you say that you have someone hogging the cache and killing page life, I assume you mean that their query is asking for a memory grant or asking for memory that is draining the buffer cache, the data cache from SQL Server. If you're on a decent version of SQL, like 2012, I think SP2 or 3, or 2014 SP2 or 2016, you have a lot of good information about memory grants. Prior to that, you don't have a lot. So what you could try doing is, if you're on a more modern version of SQL Server, you can run Blitz cache, and you can order by memory grant or average memory grant, and you can see if any queries are asking for great big memory grants, and if they have unused memory grants. That was recent. I added that a couple months back. Prior to that, not really a lot of good information on that. It would kind of be hunting and pecking to try to see how much memory got assigned to a query. Anyone else? Anyone other? Chime in on that?
Nope.
No. All right, fine.
You got it.
Let's see. Well, you are on MaxStop. Again, win 20,000 over 2. 8 procs, cost threshold 50, MaxStop 4. Why do I have 9 EC IDs for 1 SPID? Oh. Was anyone paying attention when I did the parallelism deck at the pre-con?
No.
No?
I was tired.
Yeah. Everyone was tired that day. So the reason you have 9 is because parallelism doesn't just control cores, it also controls threads. So you can have up to 4 threads per parallel operator per core. So if you have 2, let's just call them clustered index scans, happening on 2 different processors, and they're both using 4 cores, they're both using 4 threads on each core, rather, you can see you'll see 4 threads a piece, and then 1 thread coordinating. So that's probably why you see 9. That's what I have to say about that. Some SP Blitz cache. That's someone's question. Have you no decency, sir? Have you no decency?
So, SP Blitz cache, go!
Oh, my word. How do you end up in office hours and not know about Blitz cache? How does that happen? That is boggling.
That is what we like to call in the business a softball. Man.
All right. Well, I'm going to send that link to the first responder kit out, and you can go and you can look at all the awesome and interesting things that we have in there. It's Blitz index, it's Blitz cache, and it's Blitz first. And now it also includes Blitz who, because we separated out some of the code from Blitz first into its own stored procedure. Blitzy McBlitzface is not in there yet.
Damn it.
We're working on it. We're trying to figure out how to get it to just return weird ASCII faces. But I'm just not good enough at using Replicate to do that.
And I'm not going to help you. I'm just
No
not.
one's helping.
Nope.
I keep emailing Kendra and Jeremiah like, dude, you gotta help me with Blitzy McBlitzface, but they're like, no, we have lives now. I'm like, okay, fine. All right. What's up next? I have a two-node. Oh, this is Tara. Here's one for you. You're gonna love this. I have a two-node failover cluster, SQL Server 2014 Enterprise and Windows 2012, with a default instance. I want to add named instances to the same machines. Do I need a SQL cluster and separate drives for each new instance?
You need to install a new failover cluster instance. So you install SQL Server, and the installation is going to recognize that you're on a cluster, and so you're going to install a new instance using the cluster. Go through the wizard with the cluster stuff, and then you do need separate drives for each new instance. I'm not sure that you want to put more than one more instance on a two-node failover cluster, though. That wouldn't be recommended. Really, only one's recommended for a two-node failover cluster, but maybe two. I wouldn't go for three, though, or any higher.
All right. Is pull better than push for replication performance?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I've never used a pull subscription, always push, and I think that most people who use transactional replication use push. That's the default. I have no idea about performance, though.
All right. Good stuff. I don't know the answer either, clearly. No replication going on here. Let's see, we have a question about Blitz cache. SQL Server 2014 standard. When I run Blitz cache during the day, I'm seeing that everything in there has been created within the last minute. Am I right to assume from that we are constantly recompiling our code? No. If you were constantly recompiling your code, there would be nothing in there. If you're constantly compiling your code, you'll have a lot of single-use plans in there. So when you're asking about temp tables, that will cause a statement-level recompilation. That won't cause the whole thing to recompile. And that will only happen when the temp table changes enough to trigger a recompilation. So it's typically like 6 uses or a lot of modifications within the temp table. There's a great post by Paul White called Temp Tables and Stored Procedures, and I'm going to grab that link for you in case you don't already have it. And stored procedures. And I'm going to drop that into the Q&A section so you can read that. And so since you're on 2014, if you want to, one thing you can do to help stave off recompilations based on temp tables is if you're adding indexes to them, you can add indexes as part of the inline syntax. Wow. Another replication question. Tara, you ready?
I actually might have some information on that one.
All right. I hope I'm reading the right one then. Distribution database, 8 million rows, retention set to 4 days due to Informatica power exchange and specific requirement. Can we set allow anonymous and immediate sync in publication? Is it good practice?
Now, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to the actual question, but I do have a comment on your retention of 4 days. So I have worked at a job where we did use Informatica Power Exchange. So I'm very familiar with this issue. It causes blocking in the distribution database. Informatica reads the distribution database directly rather than being an official subscriber in the in replication. We had to set our retention down to I think it was 12 hours. So the Informatica team that we had said, I think the minimum that they were saying was 2 days. Actually, I think they wanted 4 days, but we agreed to 2 days, and we ended up having to go down to 12 hours due to how busy our system was, how much data was inserts, updates, and deletes on the publisher. So you do not have to keep yours to 4 days. We definitely did not use it. If you ever need to do a resync, you're going to have to do a snapshot, obviously, but how often does that happen? And
Question
with
for the ages.
Informatica Power Exchange, they create the publication. So if they're not setting allow anonymous and immediate sync, this is really a question for Informatica rather than for us. Contact them to see what they allow for their publication or for their for the publication properties.
Curse you, Informatica.
I did not like supporting that environment.
I don't blame you. From what I hear, that's a tough one. Informatica's
Yeah.
Informatica's like difficult for like really smart people. I can only imagine how lost I would be if I had to deal with that.
Yeah, I didn't like Informatica at all. It was not fun.
It was just weird because it's such a widely touted ETL tool. When people are like, "Yeah, Informatica, get all your data, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I will write my own damn BCP." But I'm dumb. So don't always do what I do. Erik asks, Erik, you spell your name wrong, first of all. Someone has been trashing Temp TB on a dev server. So my first question is, who cares? How can I catch someone after the fact that has been killing Temp TB? Well, you can't. Not really. You can check the plan cache and see if anything in there is weird, but there's not really a way to sort by Temp TB usage. After the fact, I don't know, guys. What do you think?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was answering a question
No.
inside there.
Is there a way to find out what used Temp TB after the fact? After
the fact, I don't really think so. But if this is a recurring problem, start logging the data. Start logging SP who is active, maybe every 30 seconds, maybe more frequently. Temporarily. At my last job, we had a 500 gigabyte Temp TB database, and I think our mount point had like 800 gigabytes. This is for a business analytics type stuff. Crazy queries, pulling massive amounts of data. And we got an alert that our Temp TB mount point was running out of space, and I took a look, and sure enough, it had grown past our half terabyte up to 800 gig or whatever it was set to. And all I had to do was go into SP who is active and look at the past couple hours, and you can see under, I forget what the column name is, but it's like Temp TB allocations, I think. And immediately I could see a query that had a massive amount of Temp TB allocations. I mean, it just jumped right out. I did an order by that column, and it was really easy to see. So I would highly recommend that in any production environment that you do log SP who is active. Every 30 seconds, every minute, let's say, keep maybe 10 days of data. And then if you need to do this like in a dev environment, just do this temporarily, or just don't log the data very frequently.
Yeah. So again, this doesn't help you after the fact, but if you want to bust someone for doing it, I wrote a blog post a while back about tracking Temp TB growth with extended events. So if you want to fire that on up, you can see if you catch anything interesting happening. I'm willing to bet that someone's just like doing something dumb like rebuilding indexes and sorting in Temp TBs. That's always fun. There's an entity framework question, Richie. If you want to, let's see. I am seeing entity framework running set show plan all on, and then seeing show plan permission denied in database and traces for user errors. Also seeing must declare the scalar variable at 469 errors in entity framework. Are these settings I can ask the devs to change, or is someone?
I have not seen anything that sets show plan on. I would assume that's somewhere in the code somewhere. That would be my first guess. You really shouldn't need show plan, right? I mean, unless we're actually doing something in the application with our execution plans, then probably I would need it. But yeah, I dig into that just a little bit and take a look at the actual code, not the code that's going into SQL Server, but the code that from Entity Framework and your data access layer. I'm assuming someone probably copied something somewhere and is explicitly putting that line into probably the Entity Framework pipeline to go to SQL Server. So that would be my gut check, because I don't know of anything in any framework that does show plan.
No, especially show plan all. I would be careful if someone's running like a profiler or DTA on the server. They might be doing something kind of weird and trying to like gather stuff while it's running. They might be profiling the code in some way. Let's see. Let's scroll on down. What version of Windows 2016 Server should be used for SQL Server 2016 Enterprise?
I don't understand.
What are your? I mean, I guess because you have like standard and enterprise and core and all that stuff. So I'm pretty agnostic on that one. I don't really have a lot of opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've used, not for 2016, but, standard and enterprise, and a lot of times we would use SQL Server Enterprise with Windows Standard. We just didn't need the enterprise features of Windows. But just, you need to compare the additions for Windows 2016 Server and see what you require for your business. It's going one of the things is going to be how much memory do you need on that server.
Good point on that one. VLFs, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being how much attention we should pay to it. That is not how you scale a question. You have to give a most and least on that. What is your opinion? Is there a way to measure its benefit?
So VLFs are a problem for database recovery. So when you restart SQL Server, it goes through crash recovery, and if you have a lot of VLFs on your database, that database may not come up for a while. I've had a database that had 75,000 VLFs in production. It was a mission-critical database. I didn't know about VLFs. This is probably about 10 years ago at this point. But the database took 45 minutes to come online, and after contacting Microsoft, I learned about VLFs, and so we had to reduce them. And once you fix your auto growth, you're not going to encounter the VLF issue anymore. So it's a problem with your restoring a database, and for most people it's going to be what happens to the database when you restart the SQL instance as it goes through crash recovery. I've seen some comments about it possibly affecting performance, but I don't know how to even check that. I've never been told that performance issues were due to high VLFs. But as a result of the 45-minute outage we had, I then set up monitoring for VLFs. Run it maybe once a week, some VLF script across all your servers and databases, and then report back in for anything that's showing high numbers. Once you fix it, though, it should not be encountered again on that same database.
Yeah, I mean, I once had a database with a 500 gig log file that had 5,000 VLFs in it, and it took 21 hours to recover.
Oh, wow.
Now, thankfully, this wasn't like a production outage 21 hours. This was like me restoring it to offload DBCC check TB. But as soon as I hit my script went into the restore portion, it sat there for 21 hours, which is amazing.
Wow.
Amazing amount of. So it's totally something to like pay attention to if you're, if you restore a database and you see that it takes a long time, I'd probably pay more attention to it then. Or if you're like, planning on doing some setting up for like log shipping or mirroring, it might be something to look into. But overall, I think Tara's right. Check in on it like once a week or once a month, and again, once you fix it the first time, it's hard for it to get out of hand again. Let's see. SQL 2012, but this really can be asked for any question. I don't think this is just for SQL Server 2012. For app developers, do you recommend always using fully qualified object names? Example, database schema object, most specifically the schema? Yes, yeah, I would qualify schema and object.
Schema and object, yeah, but not
database
really, unless you need to cross over to another database. You're going to get the database attached through your whatever database you connected to from your connection string. But if you need to cross databases, that's when you do the three-part name.
Yep.
It depends how you architect the database, though, right? I mean, if you're not using schemas, then what does it really care?
Oh yeah, but I mean, I like the best practice of always using DBO dot. If you're not using schemas.
Yeah, I got to an argument at like a code camp or something with some Oracle guy that's telling me that I should always qualify with schema and all this other stuff, and I'm like, look, what does it matter unless I'm actually using schemas? If I'm not using schemas, who really cares?
Yeah.
And he huffed off in his Oracle huffy, I'm better than you way.
Well, in Oracle, everything is a schema, right?
That's right.
You don't have as much database separation as you do within SQL Server. With SQL Server, you have a server, you have an instance, and you create databases. In Oracle, you have a database, and that's your instance. And if you want another database, you have to install another instance. And so within a database, you may create lots of different schema to separate, user workloads out, but you still sort of end up with just this one monolithic pile of garbage. And I'm not saying Oracle's garbage, it's just tough to maintain all that. Obvious follow-up on the cluster question, why aren't multiple instances recommended? For the same reason you don't recommend multiple instances anywhere. It is a pain in the butt, the entire butt, to troubleshoot performance stuff when you have stacked instances. Anything else you guys want to add on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't like the stack instances on a single server. So let's say it's a 2-node cluster. If you have 2 instances and they were both running on the same node, that's the same thing as it's a stacked, stacked instances anyway. But now let's take a look at 2-node cluster where we make it active. I know that terminology isn't used anymore, but it's isn't the right terminology, but it is still used. So you've got an instance running on each node. I actually like that environment, because we're using the hardware. The caveat, though, and Microsoft highly recommends that you do not do this. You run active passive instead, so only one instance on a 2-node cluster. So the caveat is if you have an outage, you lose a node. Both instances are now running on the same server. Can that hardware support the load of both instances? And I always tell people, well, so what if we have an outage? The companies that I've worked for, we have these expensive contracts with the vendors to replace hardware within like 4 hours. So it's not like we're going to be running on the same node for 2 days. We're going to have it replaced and fixed in probably less than an hour. But let's just say it's a major hardware issue. It's going to be within 4 hours or so. So I don't care about that. I like to use all my hardware that I can.
Cool.
All right. So I think the last question that we have time for, is there ever an instance where a table variable is better than a temp table? Do you guys have anything?
As far as better, I mean, the only time is, if you want to persist the data. If a transaction gets rolled back, the data gets rolled back in the temp table. But if you put it into a table variable, that data would still persist. It survives the rolled back transaction. But I just use temp tables everywhere until I have a tool that won't allow me to. For instance, SSIS, and I can't remember the specific issue, but I had a store procedure that was using a temp table, and it would not. There's some kind of bug in the SSIS, and I had to switch that specific code to use a table variable to get it to work, and it killed me to do this because I hate them for performance reasons, but it was the only way we could get the package to work. It's a known bug, apparently.
So for me, there's one other sort of interesting side to table variables, and that is that they will never cause a recompilation. So SQL doesn't generate statistics for table variables. So if you use them in a stored procedure, you will always, each and every single time, get the same heinous cardinality estimate, but you will never trigger a recompilation. And the tricky, sucky thing is that the only way to get an accurate cardinality estimate out of a table variable is to use a recompile hint. So it's just like you have this feature that it's like it won't cause a recompile, but if you want good performance, you have to recompile. So my use of table variables is pretty much limited to code and tasks where performance does not matter. So if I'm just doing it, like a perfect example is Ola Hallengren scripts. He sticks everything into table variables and runs off those. Doesn't use any temp tables. It's because performance doesn't matter. He's just iterating over one object at a time anyway. So that's the kind of stuff where I'd use a table variable, maybe, but not even then guaranteed. And that brings us to 12:45. Welcome back, Tara. It was lovely having you here.
Yay.
These replication and clustering questions.
There were a lot today.
There were a lot last time, too, and I just didn't know that.
Sorry.
Yeah, he just walked right over. Just like, blah, blah, blah.
Nope, not happening. All right, cool. See you guys next week. Thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Bye.